Good morning. I got another book here by Nathaniel Brandon called How to Raise Your Self-Esteem. It is from 1988, so it is a little old, and it was published by Bantam Books, Bantam Books. So, let's see, we've got some acknowledgments here. I wish to express my appreciation for the many helpful suggestions of my editor, Linda Ragland Cunningham. I want to acknowledge my wife, Devers, not only for her invaluable editorial assistance, but for her innovative work in the field of sub-personality psychology. She has contributed greatly to my understanding of the importance for self-esteem and integrating our sub-selves. In this book, I deal only with the child self and the teenage self. In therapy, we work also with an opposite gender self, that is, a female component in males and a male component in females, and a mother self and a father self, an infant self and a higher self. The preface. It's not easy for me to be in love or to give love, says an attorney, because in my heart I don't feel lovable. Whatever I do, says a college professor, who is also a mother of 3, there is always a voice inside me saying, not enough, I'm not enough. There's not much joy in what I do, always trying to prove myself, just increasing exhaustion. What's the point of trying to accomplish anything? Asks an unhappy teenager. I always feel as if everyone else knows something I don't know and can't ever know. It's as if I were born missing something everyone else has. Happiness frightens me, says a man who has a drinking problem. I have this sense that if I'm happy, something terrible will happen. So if things are going too well, I take a drink, and then another. Pretty soon things stop going well, but at least I'm not so scared. I'm in control, sort of. I know what to expect. I'm not waiting for lightning to strike. I know I sleep with too many men, says a woman twice married, twice divorced. For a few minutes when I'm being held, I feel that I matter to someone, that I have value. But that's self-deception, and I know it. Afterwards, I feel more alone, and I despise myself worse than before, which drives me to the next man. But how can I find a way out? How do I stop? How do I learn to love myself? How do we grow in self-esteem? How do we break the cycle of self-defeating behaviors generated by deficit self-esteem? These are the questions this book answers. I began to see that such a book was needed when, while being interviewed following the publication of Honoring the Self, I heard a particular question again and again. Dr. Brandon, you have presented a comprehensive picture of the role of self-esteem in human life and the devastation wrought by a poor self-concept. But in simple everyday terms, what can a person do, without the aid of a psychotherapist, to raise the level of his or her self-esteem? What can we do to believe in ourselves more, trust ourselves more, feel more confident about who we are? I saw that there was one more book on self-esteem I had to write. This book is not an extension of the theory of self-esteem, but an amplification of its practice. Its basic concern is with the actions, both mental and physical, that advance self-esteem or undermine it. The strategies for building self-esteem that I recommend in the following pages have been thoroughly tested with thousands of clients in the 3 decades I have been practicing therapy. On the more personal level, they also have been tested in the arena of my own ongoing pursuit of self-actualization. I have seen my self-esteem strengthen or weaken depending on the degree to which I consistently practiced the principles and practices this book advocates. I do not write as a detached observer, remote from the field of action, but as one who has lived that which I am writing about. These ideas work. If your goal is growth and self-confidence and self-respect, this book is addressed to you. However, because the book is action-oriented, because it details specific exercises and behaviors in everyday life that raise self-esteem, it is addressed to professionals no less than to non-professionals. Therapists know how badly our field needs specific procedures for transforming a poor self-concept. I hope they will choose to experiment in their own practices with the tools this book provides. Chapter 1. The Importance of Self-Esteem. How we feel about ourselves crucially affects virtually every aspect of our experience, from the way we function at work, in love, in sex, to the way we operate as parents, to how high in life we are likely to rise. Our responses to events are shaped by who and what we think we are. The dramas of our lives are the reflections of our most private visions of ourselves. Thus, self-esteem is the key to success or failure. It is also the key to understanding ourselves and others. Apart from problems that are biological in origin, I cannot think of a single psychological difficulty, from anxiety and depression to fear of intimacy or of success, to alcohol or drug abuse, to underachievement at school or at work, to spouse battering or child molestation, to sexual dysfunctions or emotional immaturity, to suicide or crimes of violence, that is not traceable to poor self-esteem. Of all the judgments we pass, none is as important as the one we pass on ourselves. Positive self-esteem is a cardinal requirement of a fulfilling life. Let us understand what self-esteem is. It has two components: a feeling of personal competence and a feeling of personal worth. In other words, self-esteem is the sum of self-confidence and self-respect. It reflects your implicit judgment of your ability to cope with the challenges of your life, to understand and master your problems, and of your right to be happy, to respect and stand up for your interests and needs. To have high self-esteem is to feel confidently appropriate to life. That is, competent and worthy in the sense just indicated. To have low self-esteem is to feel inappropriate to life, wrong, not about this issue or that, but wrong as a person. You have average self-esteem. To have average self-esteem is to fluctuate between feeling appropriate and inappropriate, right and wrong as a person, and to manifest these inconsistencies in behavior, sometimes acting wisely, sometimes acting foolishly, thereby reinforcing the uncertainty. The ability to develop a healthy self-confidence and self-respect is inherent in all our natures, since our ability to think is the basic source of our competence, and the fact that we are alive is the basic source of our right to strive for happiness. Ideally, everyone should enjoy a high level of self-esteem, experiencing both intellectual self-trust and a strong sense that happiness is appropriate. Unfortunately, however, a great many people do not. Many people suffer from feelings of inadequacy, insecurity, self-doubt, guilt, and fear of full participation in life, a vague sense that I am not enough. These feelings are not always readily recognized and acknowledged, but they are there. In the process of growing up, And in the process of living itself, it is all too easy for us to become alienated from or never to form a positive self-concept. We may never reach a joyful vision of ourselves because of negative input from others, or because we have defaulted on our own honesty, integrity, responsibility, self-assertiveness, or because we have judged our own actions with inadequate understanding and compassion. However, self-esteem is always a matter of degree. I have never known anyone who was entirely lacking in positive self-esteem, nor have I known anyone who was incapable of growing in self-esteem. To grow in self-esteem is to grow in the conviction that one is competent to live and worthy of happiness, and therefore to face life with greater confidence, benevolence, and optimism, which help us to reach our goals, experience fulfillment. To grow in self-esteem is to expand our capacity for happiness. If we understand this, we can appreciate the fact, that all of us have a stake in cultivating our self-esteem. It is not necessary to hate ourselves before we can learn to love ourselves more. We do not have to feel inferior in order to want to feel more confident. We do not have to be miserable to want to expand our capacity for joy. The higher our self-esteem, the better equipped we are to cope with life's adversities. The more resilient we are, the more we resist pressure to succumb to despair or defeat. The higher our self-esteem, the more likely we are to be creative in our work, which means the more successful we are likely to be. The higher our self-esteem, the more ambitious we tend to be, not necessarily in a career or financial sense, but in terms of what we hope to experience in life, emotionally, creatively, and spiritually. The higher our self-esteem, the more likely we are to form nourishing rather than destructive relationships. Since like is drawn to like, health is attracted to health, and vitality and expansiveness are more appealing than emptiness and exploitiveness. The higher our self-esteem, the more inclined we are to treat others with respect, benevolence, and goodwill, since we do not perceive them as threats. We do not feel as strangers and afraid in a world we never made, quoting A. E. Housman's poem. And since self-respect is the foundation of respect for others, the higher our self-esteem, the more joy we may experience in the sheer fact of being, of waking up in the morning, of living inside our own bodies. These are the rewards of self-confidence and self-respect. In the book Honoring the Self, I discuss in detail why such correlations exist, but I trust it is clear that if we wish to expand our positive possibilities and thereby transform the quality of our existence, the art of nurturing our self-esteem is the place to begin. Let us go still more deeply into the meaning of self-esteem. Self-esteem, on whatever level, is an intimate experience. It resides in the core of our being. It is what I think and feel about myself, not what someone else thinks or feels about me. As children, our self-confidence and self-respect can be nurtured or undermined by adults, according to whether we are respected, loved, valued, and encouraged to trust ourselves. But even in our early years, our own choices and decisions play a crucial role in the level of self-esteem we ultimately develop.